excellence, and motivation always be a challenge.
Welcome to Great Employees Matter, the weekly podcast that focuses on the personal development of employees and the professional approach of professional development of employees and the professional approach of employers, which in tandem results in more confident individuals, more employee-centric leadership, and greater success for all concerned. My name is Lloyd Dix, and along with my co-founders, Kobe Dumas and Jimmy Bingham, are thrilled to be able to have a much anticipated, great conversation with our guest of the week, Colin Corby. Colin is the founder and of Technology Wellbeing Limited International. He's a TED Talk speaker. He's the creator of the Digital Detox. He is a technologist, a digital well-being coach, and endurance triathlete. Now try to imagine that kind of trilogy. A digital detox coach, a technologist, and an endurance athlete. He's based in the United Kingdom, which of course is many hours ahead of us. It's after 10 o'clock at night there right now, so we appreciate him staying up with us and keeping us awake. He talks about how the relationship between these things is changing for the world and how it helps with our health and helps keep the way that we think. He is very passionate about helping people. He has over 30 years experience in leading technology companies, which together with the mindset of an athlete, he brings to his technology well-being approach. He's an a member of the International Coaching Federation, the ICF, a speaker, an author, and I already alluded to his TED Talk, which you can find on his website. He was at the Identity event held at Lake Superior State University, and I'm sorry, Colin, I'm sure I butchered that, but you can correct that for me and get them out there. He's appeared as a digital detox expert on the BBC Wales X-ray program in October 2022. Author and co-author of a number of articles on the future of work. And I have to tell you, I am butchering this so badly. It probably is the worst introduction that you have ever had. This is usually the introduction is where our other partner, Jimmy, comes in. But Jimmy is on assignment. We actually sent him out of town this week to do some assignments for us. And so he's actually on assignment. But we're hopeful that he will join us very shortly. And because I've done such a poor job of introducing you, first off, the only thing I want to say, I'm going to throw away my notes, and I want to say, welcome to the show. You are the first digital detox expert that we have had. It often happens that things overlap. We have career coaches, we have people that help out with all aspects. But when I received your biography, my first question is, what the heck is a digital detox coach? And then my second question was, how ironic that the digital detox coach was going to go on a podcast to talk about digitally detoxing. So having said all that, I'm going to turn this over to Kobe before I butcher it even further and let Kobe do his thing. Kobe?
You know what, Lloyd, I think you did a great job. You actually started the intro at about 3 minutes in and it went perfect.
Oh, good.
I like it that you don't memorize it. I like it from the head, so that was much better. But anyway, welcome, Colin. And I know I said your name wrong earlier, but if you're just joining us, welcome to Great Employees Matter. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share the content if you like it, interact with us. You can leave your comments. I'll make sure that we address your comments, and then we'll go from there. Now, with that, Colin, let's go ahead and get into it, man. Can you take us back to your early years? What was your upbringing like, and how did how did it influence your passion of technology and actually well-being and being an athlete?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your show, and such a great introduction. My upbringing was fairly standard. I still live in the same town where I was born.
Oh wow, that's nice.
But I live in a place called Malden, Essex, which is one of the oldest towns in England, and it's about 50 miles from London. Everyone knows where London is, so 50 miles east of London. So just grew up in the 60s and went to school 60s, 70s. Nothing exceptional except that I just wanted to get involved with all of the excitement that was happening in terms of technology. So I was an apprentice, because in those days people got apprenticeships. So I was an apprentice for British Telecom.
Were you? No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, that's all right. So I was an apprentice. So I did everything that apprentices do. I went up the poles, I went under the ground, I went into the exchanges. But I got a rapid promotion into management when I was 21. And then I sort of worked in British Telecom International, and then worked on loads of world first technologies, the first digital cable system, the first digital satellite systems.
When did your interest in technology and psychology intersect? Was that later on in life? Because these are your earlier jobs. You're doing something totally different than Digital Detox.
So the psychology part of it was, so in my mid-30s, I had such a brilliant job, but I suffered stress. And it wasn't talked about then. But I started to, my heart used to race at work. I used to get the stars in the eyes, and a couple of times I used to pass out. So to cut a long story short, had all the checks, nothing showed up. So I thought I better get myself fit, because if you get fit, it controls the way the heart is able to respond. So I started exercising, and I started swimming. And I sort of had this memory of being quite a good swimmer when I was, very small. And I went into a swimming pool, 2 lengths of the pool. I was wrecked, totally wrecked. But I had to carry on because of, I had to somehow hold down my job, pay the mortgage, all of those other great things. So I carried on with the exercise, and I got, fitter. Then I took lessons in all of the swimming strokes. And then I started racing, and I started training with a triathlon group, and I got talked into doing longer triathlons, and I got talked into doing the Ironman. But it's that process that I got interested in. Isn't it interesting that the way you think changes what you can do?
I agree with that 100%.
So at this stage, it's all about change. I was sort of working out, changing my mindset based on sport, and how that flowed through into work. But it wasn't until much later that the final piece of the jigsaw fell into place. I had an opportunity. I worked for lots of technology companies, had an opportunity of doing some consultancy and then doing my own thing. And I thought, well, what do I like doing? I love technology. I love sport. I love this mindset thing. And isn't it interesting why I'm spending so long on my smartphone? And then I researched it, and I looked at all the psychology associated with encouraging us and nudging us to spend more time on our smartphones, and what the implications of this might be. And I thought, well, if I had the ideal job, it will be smashing those things together. Mm-hmm. So you've got mindset, you've got the benefit that sport brings to that. You've got this fascination with technology, which was really accelerating at that stage, and how it's changing the way we think and behave. So that's that crashed together, and so that was about 8 years ago.
So it just came together out of just seeing what was happening in your environment, because it looked like you started to get physical because of your job.
Yeah.
You got involved with that, and then you went through changes in that physical journey, in that athletic journey, that caused you to change different with your mind. So all of those kind of came together. You're saying 8 years ago?
Yeah, around about 8 years ago. The truth of the matter was, I looked at applying for jobs and things like that, and then getting myself ready, and I thought, you know what, I don't want to do that again. I want to do something different. So that was the impetus behind sort of saying, well, okay, what is it? What is it I want to do?
Well, before we head up, because we talk about being a great employee and great employers as well. So you obviously went through some changes. What made you want to get out of the traditional workforce in the first place?
I think because it was the energy that I had for the things that I really were passionate about, and almost the jobs were too restrictive. Also, as you get older, and we know this, as you get older, because of the stereotypes of the way that people think about older people, the opportunities start to dry up.
Yes.
So you get to a point where you can't get employed. It doesn't matter how well you do at the interviews, you can't get employed. You can do consultancy though, so you can do consultancy. So that works. But yeah, you get to the stage where you're saying, well, actually, I've got more to offer than that.
Right.
So you almost outgrow being employed at that stage.
Right. And so you become an entrepreneur. You start the detox coaching?
Yes. So 2018, I created the Digital Detox Coach because it became fairly obvious to me that this idea, it's almost like a science fiction idea that we can, the brain's a bit like a computer, a bit software, and the body's just hardware, and we can just plug in and we can work 24/7. It clearly can't be done. We're actually biological animals, and we're totally different to that. Yeah. But once you're online, it's almost like you're in, this amazing candy store. And you can indulge in anything you want all of the time. Right. And the idea of the digital detox is, willpower is just not enough. You have to get out the candy store. You have to get back into reality.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love this segue. So I think I'm gonna if Lloyd's ready, I'm gonna give him the opportunity to jump in because like I said, we always talk to people about the benefits of digital and AI and different things like that. And you're coming from a different perspective, which I think is incredible, because all of us or any of us that were born in the 70s and prior, or 80s and prior, can appreciate the not having to detox, because we never had that need. We were already involved with each other. Like I tell people, my Facebook was, my mama said, go outside and play. That was my Facebook. You know what I mean? So, but with that, man, Lloyd, I know you have a lot of questions and a lot of things that you want to go ahead. So go ahead and take over.
Thank you. The digital detox and the amount of digital that is coming on these days has caused people to go ahead and to try different things. A lot of parents say no cell phones at the dinner table. Some corporations have no email Mondays. On a Monday, you're not allowed to have email at all. And they'll go through and do all that. And my question is how does that work? And is that something that we should adopt as a way to wean us off our cell phones and our computers and our email?
So the thing to think about here is that technology isn't a bad thing. It's here to stay. AI is here to stay, and it's only going to get better and better and better. So where I'm coming from is effectively digital sustainability, where in order for us as humans, as biological animals, to be happy, healthy, and live a successful life, we have to live in balance with technology. So that's where I'm coming from there. So a lot of companies have these initiatives, digital wellbeing initiatives, as you say, no email Mondays and all of those sorts of things. Digital detox can be as short as a 20-second screen break all the way through to, the 2 weeks in the wilderness and everything in between. And the idea of the smaller digital detoxes is that it's rest and recovery. So I'll give you an example. Microsoft did some research. Microsoft Research did some research that said it's back-to-back Zoom meetings. And if you have back-to-back Zoom meetings, all that happens is that the stress levels go up and up and up. So they introduced the ability to put a 10, 15-minute break automatically between your Zoom calls to allow you to recover. So digital detox in the short form is about rest and recovery. In UK and Europe, in the 1990s, before everything about the internet, there was something called a display screen equipment regulation that put an onus on employees to introduce breaks when people are working on screens. And the idea then was to reduce eye strain.
Wow, that's just so interesting. And, we're all about the gems, and as we call them. And you've already given us one that people don't even know, that 15-minute break between meetings or a 15-minute really does help. And, it's something that I wouldn't have thought of. So how does a guy like me, who has a cell phone permanently glued to his hand and is constantly looking at it for anything, how do I begin my digital detox? Where do I start?
Oh, the easiest thing to do. So I like chocolate. But if I carried a bar of chocolate around with me all day, you know what? I'm going to eat that chocolate. And if that chocolate was one of these magical refillable ones, I'd be eating chocolate all day. So carrying your smartphones is a temptation. The mere presence of your smartphone, research has shown, means that you're likely to pick it up. Even if there's not a notification, you're likely to look at your smartphone. So if you want an easy digital detox, you put your phone down. Let's say you're working at your desk. You put your phone down, you go and make yourself a coffee without your smartphone.
Wow,
and you
that's
go and
great.
chat to someone.
I'm going to follow along those same lines and talk about one of the subjects which is near and dear to my heart, which is that my wife and I became grandparents last December. And obviously, we are not worried about giving the kid a cell phone at this point in time. But one of the conversations comes up, and that is how many hours of screen time should we allow a child? And how does that work? Are you able to address that as to what you think is how early or how late and what the story is?
So I think in the US, there are some guidelines. And I think some of the guidelines is that you don't give smartphones to children of a young age. But as grandparents, what you should be doing for children, bearing in mind their brains are developing. In fact, children's brains develop all the way through to their early 20s. So what you should be doing is you should be interacting with them in the real world. Because to be fair, it's a very, very difficult thing interacting with other people. It has to be learned, and it has to be learned over many years. Reading and writing. I mean, God knows how many years that took to learn at school to be able to read and write. Moving about in this environment takes an awful long time. So play. So you can do everything without a smartphone. So as grandparents, and I've recently become a grandparent as well, we're thinking, okay, there won't be any smartphones at all because it's not needed. History is a funny thing. If we go back, I don't know, 20, 30 years, people were saying television. Should children watch so much television? It's really, really important for young children to be able to socially interact.
Do you think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Gobi. No, go ahead, Gobi.
Do you think that the social the way we are socially today with the cell phones is greatly impacting like everything across the board. Look at how much turmoil we're in with the elections and the political turmoil and the at least here in the States. But I think it kind of folds and goes out everywhere. But with that kind of turmoil and everybody being able to know everything at an instant, do you think that's affecting how everybody's living today?
So I always have to be careful with politics and religion. But the US Surgeon General produced a report last year, I think it was, on the loneliness epidemic. And he said something that was really interesting. How can it be when we're the most connected people that has ever been, yet we've got a loneliness epidemic? And what the truth is that online interactions and communications, I mean, are wonderful, particularly during a COVID pandemic. It was absolutely a godsend. But it's not the same thing. It's not a replacement for face-to-face contact. Now, you referred to, are we, because we've got instant access to information, is that affecting the way that we're thinking, much more greatly than it did in the past? There is this thing about our attention spans. Our attention spans have been measured to be reducing. And it's reducing to the point, I think it was about 47 seconds, our attention on a particular screen, and 25 minutes to come back. Professor Gloria Mark has done research over, tens of years to establish that. So attention span, what it means is that we're superficially getting information. So if we're interested in politics, we superficially get information on politics. If we're interested in something else, it's not very deep because we haven't got the attention. The great thing is if you watch American TV, if you even watch UK TV, the shots in the adverts are changing all the time in order to hold our attention. So if you go through the years of adverts in the US or the UK, you'll find that now they're switching all the time, much, much, much quicker, because we've lost the ability to hold our attention. And so if you're not delving more deeply into subjects, you're likely to make assumptions.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter what the subject is. You might make an assumption. You think, oh, yeah, that must be right. I've heard it 6 or 7 times. The personalized news feed that I get, it says all the same thing. It must be right. But that's a product of our attention, and that's a product of the news that we are personally fed. My news is different to your news, is different to Lloyd's news, which is different to Jimmy's news, because it's been personalized based on what we've done before online. Mm-hmm.
So I think my wife would disagree with you on the 47 seconds. I think she should say I couldn't last that long. My attention span is really much shorter and use small words. But I'm sorry, Kobe, didn't mean to cut you off.
You're not cutting me off at all. Please continue.
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I think I finished the bit that I was like, it always comes down to multitask. We try and multitask, and I think that's ever so funny because we all try and do it, and some people think they're good at it, some people think they're bad at it, but the neuroscience tells us that we can't actually do it. We can't use the same cognitive resources for more than one task. If we have to swap tasks, like doing a multitask, what we actually do is we have to stop doing one thing and do the other thing. But because the brain can do it very quickly, it fools us that we can multitask. So we come back to employees. If they have the opportunity, they should focus on one task, and it's much more productive.
So as an employer, do I walk out and tell my employees, okay, every day we're going to take 10 minutes off in the morning and 10 minutes off in the afternoon where nobody's going to look at his screen, nobody's going to look at his cell phone? Do I have them do calisthenics, stand up from their desk and stretch? How do we take this digital detox and put it into the employee in the work setting?
So the thing about the work setting is encourage employees. I mean, I've been in companies, everybody's sitting in front of their screens. They're not talking to the person the other side of the table or next to them. So setting up cultures within companies, encouraging people to take the coffee break, to talk to colleagues, to leave the screens behind, even for a short period, to have those water cooler discussions. So the culture of a company could encourage that sort of thing, encourage people to have face-to-face meetings if they can, or voice meetings.
Oh gosh!
Everything by email. Now I've got my daughter's. She prefers emails and messages because you know what? If you're talking to someone on the phone, you don't know what they're going to say.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a new millennial thing. They don't want to, my nephew, literally, I called him and he says, "Hold on, I'll call you back." Then he texted me. He did not want to have a conversation. I did not understand it. So I said, "No, call me back." Right? But the new kids don't want to talk on the phone.
No, but that's really that's challenging. Social interaction is very challenging, but we're social animals. So a lot of our feeling of safety and happiness comes from being well connected with other people, because we're biologically social animals. And that's so. If we feel isolated, then that has health implications on us, and that's why loneliness is such a dangerous thing, because it causes health implications. But you also mentioned about getting up from the desk. So yes, getting up from the desk is really, really important. We're 20%, I think it's 20% less active than we were in the 1960s. We're not designed to keep sitting down all the time. You know, it's not good for us. And I know the health advice from the various chief medical officers are saying, you know, the best thing you can do to improve your health is exercise.
So that brings me to the digital detox. Tell us a little bit about what you do there and how you help people.
Okay, so digital detox is an enabler. People want to achieve something. Now, whether they want to be more productive at work, they want to improve their focus and attention. So digital detox is an enabler. So you say, okay, so you're spending all your time online. You're becoming a follower rather than a creator. You're reacting to the outside world. So let's restructure that. So let's give you some challenges so that you can then take back control. So everyone is different. So there will be different challenges from different people. But the idea is to allow people to start to be comfortable without their phone, without their screen. Start to be comfortable thinking for themselves, being creative, or using other technologies like pen and paper. Start to value what's special about being human, because we're in the age of digital transformation. We're in the age of artificial intelligence. More and more of the work that we're doing now today will be automated.
Absolutely.
And so as employees, we have to think about our brand. What is it about us that's important? How can we improve ourselves and make ourselves useful for the duration of our careers? Because chances are the job you're doing now, in 5 years' time, there may be only remnants of that job. So the skills that you might have invested heavily in today you're going to have to invest again in 3 years' time and invest again in another 3 years' time. So that's that continuous cycle. So really think about what it is that you need to do, that you want to do. And digital detox is an enabler to allow that learning to take place.
I want to talk for a minute about your athletic experience. And I have to tell you where I come from. Every time someone says the dirty word exercise, I wash my mouth out with chocolate. So, I always say, in case of war, I'm a prisoner. Tell me about this. You're doing triathlons. You took it to an extreme. And how did that happen?
Well, I had to get into exercise, I said before, because it was a mechanism for handling stress and coping with work and paying the mortgage. But then I got interested in how, actually being fit enables you to do more. How much more can you do? And then once you start doing distance, it's painful, but the pain doesn't get much worse. And that's interesting. How you talk to yourself, how you think about what you're doing affects what you can do. So that whole mind control thing. So I started off with swimming, then I did triathlon, just a normal, used to be called Olympic distance, but it's called standard distance. And then after a bottle of wine with a very good friend of mine, I got talked into an Ironman triathlon. Now, it seems to me there are 3 events. The swimming was quite short. The cycle was a long way, but you were sitting down. And then you had to run, walk, or crawl a marathon. I mean, So I gave it a go. And so I did the first one and survived. The swim was easy.
So I always say that a hippopotamus can run faster than we can and can swim faster than we can. So the only chance I have of beating a hippopotamus in a triathlon is in the biking.
Yeah, and it's all on the bike. My view is it's all on the bike. It's all on the bike.
No, that's incredible.
So you can do some incredible things. A lot of the things that we think we can't do, they're just limiting beliefs.
So how do you resolve the conflict? Because on one hand, we say that to get away from the computer, to get away from the digital, to have meetings instead of emails, to get up and to take a 15-minute break. And at the same time, technology is playing a more important role in the life than ever. Now everybody's using AI and you can't get away from it. And when you call somebody, the greatest lie of 2024 is when you call a store and they say your call is important to us. That's total garbage. If my call was important to you, you would have had a person answering the phone, right? So on one hand, AI is becoming much more prevalent and technology is more prevalent in our life. And on the other hand, I hear you completely because I am, like I said, I am glued to my cell phone. I spend too much time on the cell phone, reading my emails, looking at things, getting the news I want, and all of that. And so, in your own situation, you left the company and formed your own company and did it. But if you're not capable of leaving your employment and you're stuck there, how do you balance? What's too much? I'm sorry, that's 10,000 questions at once. But really, I have to tell you how interesting you are and how much I was looking forward to this because we've never had anybody on this topic.
So what I'm going to say, and if you say to someone, it's not about the time that you spend on a screen per se, as long as you take lots of breaks. It's what you're doing. And so much of what we do online is unproductive. In fact, it's probably got nothing to do with our jobs. But if you talk to people, they say, oh yeah, but it's a nice to have, I'll still carry on. So the challenge that I had is, particularly in the work environment, is how can I make digital detox sexy? How can I make it something that someone would say, yeah, I'm going to do digital detox? So I introduced this idea of the business endurance athlete, because our careers are like an endurance race. Why wouldn't you want to be your best? Why wouldn't you want to show up and be your best at work? Why would you let yourself down deliberately? Well, if you take a look at the mindset of an athlete, what an athlete will do is they would look after themselves. The human brain is, I read, it was an interesting book. It equated the processing power of a supercomputer several years ago with the human brain in terms of calculating capacity. Now, they're not really comparable, but just on that one thing. And the human brain was the supercomputer used 1 million times the power of the human brain. Now, evolution's done such an amazing job in creating humans and all other animals for that matter as well. But the mind and the body are inextricably linked. So if you want to think clearly, you need oxygen. You need your blood to pump the oxygen to the brain. If you want to perform at your best, you've got to get enough sleep. Otherwise, you're going to need 1 million times the power and be a supercomputer. Okay, so you've got to work with your body. So if you come back to endurance athlete, so if you're an endurance business athlete, you want to perform at your best, you want to improve, and you want to respond to absolutely anything that could come your way, then you've got to look after yourself. So digital detox is about rest and recovery. So you're going to look after yourself so that you're able to perform at your best.
I agree with that. And I got a question. So for leaders, like we talk to a lot of leaders, for leaders, what's one way that they can encourage cultural digital well-being within their teams or in their workplace? Because it can be hard. Like a lot of times, maybe it may be, misguided information, but sometimes people feel like they cannot leave anywhere without their phone because they may miss something. They may miss a phone call. What do you say to that, or how do you coach that?
So leadership, the clue's in the word leader. So leading by example is the easiest way. But what companies can do is have a clear communication strategy. So if anybody at work now, they could receive an email, they could receive a phone call, they could receive video call, they could receive messages, notifications, you name it. They could get a message from a senior manager or a leader on any platform.
Yeah.
Have a communication strategy that says, look, if something's really, really important as a company, you're going to get that information on this platform.
Wow. It looks like Jimmy's joined us just in time. Jimmy, can you hear us?
Aloha.
Aloha. I didn't think he was going to make it because he's been talking to me in the background saying that, he wasn't having a good connection, but it's good to see you.
Yeah, well, I tried to get on via the laptop and I was on for a second and then I was off and then I couldn't get back on. So now I'm just going straight to the phone so I can walk around and you can see the beautiful landscape here. Hi, Colin. How are you?
Hi, Jimmy. I'm very well. Thank you.
Sorry I wasn't able to join the whole podcast, but you're in good hands. I'm sure it's been going quite well. So I don't know that I have much to contribute because I haven't heard much, but I can tell you that I am in detox mode.
Good for you.
Wow. Yeah, that's good, Jimmy. So he is in detox mode. Everybody's saying what's up. With that, real quick, let's go ahead and address the question that Dale is asking us on the bottom here. He says, what skills do you feel are the best way to help a person who is digressing from guarding their personal downtime away from their computer?
Can I just check I've understood the question? So
yeah, me too.
Digressing from guarding their personal downtime. Could you put that a different way?
Let me look at it real quick.
And I'll jump in here for just a minute because in California, they want to pass a labor law where your employer could not require you to look at your email while you're on vacation or at night or when you're not at work. And they actually want to make that a law.
I've
And
seen that in Europe as well. It's
oh,
the right. It's the right to disconnect.
yes, and the employer cannot force you. What do you think?
Well, there's always going to be some jobs that require people to be on call, but you can define when someone is on call, an emergency service, whatever that is, or a company emergency worker. To be carrying a phone just in case someone might call seems very unproductive. So we come back to leadership. What can leaders do is they can lead by example. They can say, do you know what? I'm not going to be contactable for this period of time. Now that's really hard because leaders are always thinking about the job. But they can say, I'm not going to contact all of these people just when the thought runs through my mind. Or if I am, and if I'm working on something important, I'll let them know that I might be contacting them. So rather than have everybody on edge all the time, creating stress, reducing their ability to rest and recover, then leaders can actually improve things. So let's be, clear about this. If we can't go home and have a family life, and if we can't get enough sleep, and if we can't switch off, we're not going to be as good the next day at work. And if we do that for too long, stress levels will build up, and we know that the levels of stress and burnout have been going up and up. So in the short term, you can be a macho leader and have everybody, jumping to attention. But in the medium and long term, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you a lot in those staff members, whether they stay or whether they leave.
Colby, you're on mute.
And so am I.
Jimmy, you first.
Okay, I was just going to jump in and say that I agree with you wholeheartedly, Colin. And one of the things that we train employers and employees to do is time management. And part of time management is making sure that we as leaders establish time. We control our time rather than just managing the time. And in the control of the time, that there are certain times during the day where we're not contactable because we know that we're going to use that space for things that need to be done, right? And then open ourselves up and let people know when we have time availability. It's kind of like having an open door, but being very specific about when the door is open.
And that's really important, because if we are constantly multitasking, doing lots and lots of different tasks, we're not critically thinking about any of those tasks deeply enough. And that's when mistakes happen. Mistakes can cost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And worse. If you're in some areas of work, it can be far worse than just money. But with time management, if I can extend that idea, I think it's now attention management. So attention management is the new time management. So where are you going to pay attention to? If you're doing something important, then book out a slot in your diary and do that important thing, if it's important. And then block out times to do the important things, whether you're a leader or whether you're an employee. Because by doing that, you can work at your best and produce your best results.
I agree. The important things are called priorities, right?
Yes. But we're predisposed now to have short attention spans. So one of the things that I encourage people is how to retrain your attention. So some people come to me and they say, well, I can't even read a couple of pages of a physical book. And I say, okay, you might not be able to run a marathon either. So how do you run a marathon? You start training and you do short distances. How do you retrain your focus and attention? You start reading. Reading's one of the best ways of restoring focus, is you start reading a certain number of pages. So you recover the focus and attention that you once had, or in our case, that we once had. Now that it may be that you have to learn focus and attention, especially the younger employees, and that may be a more of an uphill struggle. But it is like, running a marathon or doing an endurance sport. It's small incremental gains. So don't worry if you can only read 1 or 2 pages now before your attention goes. In a month's time, that will improve if you do your training. In 2 months' time, it will improve. And it's like acquiring anything, any knowledge or any skill. You don't have it on day one, but certainly in a month's time or 6 months' time, you're going to know an awful lot more. And everyone's got different abilities, but you're going to improve. So that idea of growth mindset, coming back to the endurance sport, if you do your training, the end result is you will get better. And it's having that idea, just to guide yourself. So if you imagine yourself as a business endurance athlete and you look after yourself, you can do your best job for yourself and the company that you're working for, and the next company you're going to work for, or the promotion that you're going to get, because you're looking after yourself.
Yeah, journey of 1,000 miles starts with 1,000 steps. Go ahead with your question, Lloyd.
Well, I'm just wondering, as I'm listening to you, is the enemy, if you will, if we can say an enemy, is it the screen time or the activity? And the reason why I asked that is, let's take what you were talking about with reading. Is there a difference between reading a book in paper and reading a Kindle, which I get on my computer?
Yes. So the biggest difference is if you're reading online and you've got hyperlinks, you've got adverts, you've got other things, because the mere presence of those other opportunities to click, other directions to go, will distract from the experience that you're having reading. If you're reading a book, it's a slower process. A lot of the brain's processes are much slower. So getting into the character of a book, or getting into the meat of a particular scientific or technical problem, feeling empathy with a character, all of those things take much longer. And so you only get those by going offline and reading physical books. Now, if your Kindle has no hyperlinks and has no adverts and is just words, then that gets very, very close. But with physical books, you're physically in the environment. It has a tactile presence. It has a feel. It has other properties as well. So I would still say the physical book has got a lot going for it and is a better thing. But if you're doing a lot of traveling, then a Kindle with no adverts or hyperlinks is probably the only practical thing you can take with you.
And that, I would assume that would be true. Sorry to say, because of course as you were talking about, we're experiencing right now the death of the newspaper, right?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, everybody got a newspaper. You would fight over the breakfast table over who got what section. If somebody wanted to borrow it, you say, hey, make sure you return the sports section, whatever it is. And today, newspapers are going the way of the dinosaur. That you can't get them anymore. My kids won't even look at a newspaper.
I was going to say, they're not dead already?
If you think about it, we used to receive news via newspapers in the morning or in the evening. We received news via television media companies at certain times. Now, of course, you can receive news from any of your favorite news providers or social media channels at any time, and we're overindulging. We should go back to say, do you know what? We don't need to know the news when we switch our alarm off in the morning. We don't, to be fair, we don't actually need to know the news until after we've got up and started our breakfast, or even after our breakfast. Because if you take external information in too early in the day, that starts to set up the direction that you go in. So let's say there's a disaster or tragedy. That puts you into a frame of mind that then takes you into the rest of your day. So if you've had a good night's sleep, you're going to feel pretty good. You're going to feel, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that priority or whatever during the day. And then you have a look at the news, and doom and gloom. All of your thoughts have probably been shot now. Your day is going to be totally different to when you first thought about it. So controlling external input is really key part of digital detox. So, don't look at the news all the time. Decide when you want to look at the news. Decide when you want to do your own thinking, your own planning.
I think in a roundabout way. Oh, sorry. I've been wanting to get this out for a while, but I'm going to go back to Dale's question. And I think what he was trying to ask is, what strategies or skills do you recommend for individuals who struggle to protect their personal downtime against being on the computer?
Okay, so environment. Environment's a really interesting thing. So if you imagine when we all used to go from home, commute to the office, go into the office, then take a lunch break and then come back. All of those things were separated. They had boundaries. If you work now in a hybrid mode or you work from home, everything's all merged into the same thing. So what I would suggest is to start recreating boundaries again. So protecting your downtime really is having boundaries. When do you start work? Before that time, then you're doing other activities. So that's part of your downtime. When do you take your breaks? You can even schedule them in your calendar. So start recreating some boundaries. And then those boundaries, and make them a habit. So if you can do something at the same time every day, it becomes a habit. Now, I do a lot of training in the morning, and I do a run on Saturday. I only do one run a week, and I don't think about it. It's on a Saturday. I get up, I go for the run. So it's the same with any form of boundaries. Make it a habit. And rather than having it as a standalone, attach it to something you already do. So if you already, love your coffee at 9 o'clock or at 8 o'clock or whatever time it is, then just extend that habit with a boundary. Oh, that's the time that I'm not going to be looking at my smartphone. So attach things. Habits take a very long while to embed so that you don't think about them. The more complex, the longer it takes. So I'm guessing we've all learned to drive. That took a long time. But when we drive now, we don't have to think about everything. We're thinking about what's on the road. We might have a conversation. We might be listening to radio. We might be doing other things, but we're not necessarily having to think about every single thing we're doing concerned with driving. So very, very complex things take a long time. Other habits can take shorter, maybe 30, 60 days. You can introduce a habit if you attach it to someone else, something else that you automatically do. So, but also when you protect your downtime, you have to know, well, why are you doing it? Because you want to look after yourself, or you want to be better at work. You want the rest and recovery so you can perform better, just like an athlete. I mean, the Olympics would be not very interesting if the athletes didn't do their training and their rest and recovery, and they didn't get their sleep and all those other great things.
Yeah, it's just really, really incredible. Um, I see that we are almost out of time, up at the 55-minute mark. And I want to give you a chance to do the shameless self promotion that we all know and love. So if you will go ahead and tell people that are interested, and I have to tell you that I'm doing this only because they tell me that I have to do this. I have another 10 hours worth of questions that I want to ask you. So if you don't mind staying up till like 2, 3 in the morning, we'll have a virtual beer and finish with the questions. But in the meantime, for anybody that is interested in contacting you or getting your services, Kobe has been kind enough to put your website up there. Tell us the best way to contact you, where they can find you, and tell us how to promote you.
So the website is the best place. On the website, there are free resources. Now, when I say free resources, there are resources that don't ask you to fill in a form. You just download. And there's a great example. There's something I call Couch to 5K. It's a load of challenges. And the idea is it's a digital detox couch to 5K, and there are lots of different challenges in there, and you can download that. The other place is on LinkedIn, if you just look up Colin Corby. And I'd love people to take a look at the TEDx talk. Is technology, taking your human identity away? So have a look at that.
All right. Jimmy, you got any final words?
I do. I have one comment and one question, and I'll preface both of them by saying, since I was late to the call, I have adopted Lloyd's typical role in this podcast. So my comment is to you, Kobe. I very definitely heard Colin say that there is a chance that I am going to get better at this whole technology thing. I just have to do it.
I don't recall hearing that.
And my question is, when I first got on with the laptop for that 30 seconds before I got kicked off, Lloyd had asked the question of how do you manage children's time on the internet, and I wasn't able to hear the answer. And you may have already answered this question, but I'm going to expand that and say, how do you manage your spouse's time of getting on the internet and shopping and watching crazy shows and all that type of stuff?
He's starting fights on vacation. Oh my God.
So
let me hear this.
With children and with spouses, it's a bit like smoking. If parents smoke and they just tell their children that smoking is bad, the research has shown that the children are going to smoke more. The percentage of children smoking is much higher than if the parents didn't smoke. So with uses of smartphones and online activity, having a family agreement where the rules apply to everybody is really, really important. And the reason is that, particularly with children, if the parent is not paying them attention, is distracted by a smartphone, they feel rejected. They take that rejection with them. And so, it's a human thing. We ought to be able to spend, concentrate on an individual, particularly a child, and particularly a spouse.
Just like Jimmy. See, he popped off already before you finished. I'm just playing. He probably's having trouble. But man, I love the answer. I love all your answers. And like Lloyd here, I think we can talk for a long, long time. I think we barely scratched the surface on some of the things. So I'm gonna say, hey, Lloyd, we might want to ask him back later when we can do a regular podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
With Jimmy around.
Absolutely.
And not on vacation, but I still loved all the information you shared today, and thank you so much.
And it seems to me that if we can stop Jimmy from online shopping, then his spouse will stop online shopping too. So that's what I got out of Colin's remark. My wife said to me that we should have people that we see the most over for Thanksgiving. So I invited 3 Amazon drivers over for the dinner table.
You know what? I know my wife is listening in the next room, but same thing about my UPS and Amazon driver. I know them well because they come up. They show
Know
up
them
every
well.
day. They show up
Having them
every
over
day.
for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. That's so funny.
Well, thank you
Well,
very much for having me.
Corbin, any
Thanks for
gems you
being.
want to leave us with?
Yes, I think I'll leave you with this thought. We can't pay attention to everything. So we ought to choose what we pay attention to. Remember, what you pay attention to is what you can experience, and what you experience is what you remember. So the life that you lead is effectively what you pay attention to. So really, it's precious resource.
And I
That's
personally
yeah,
want to
man.
want to thank you because, as I say, my cell phone is glued to me, and I am going to take your gems, and I'm going to leave my cell phone somewhere else so that I detox and pay attention to the world around me. And I thank you personally for that.
I do thank you. I'm going to continue the trend because I love leaving my phone somewhere else. People
Yeah, Kobe,
around
but
me.
that's not by choice. That's only because you're old and you
Yeah,
forget where you
people.
put it.
No, no. I literally hate the thing. I don't want to answer it for nothing. Right. So, but no, thank you, Corbin. It was great. I think that there were some great gems, and if you've been with us, thank you for liking and sharing. Please continue to share. Please continue to interact with us. We're growing. Great Employees Matter on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And we'll see you next week, Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel.
Thanks, guys.
Right. Bye.